All right, so it's still the relationship between the price and the quantity, but we have to talk about a few more details. Okay, so it's the relationship between, now we're specifying market price because they are price takers, right? So they take the market price as given, and then they're picking an optimal quantity to maximize their profit, but they also have these fixed costs. Okay, now some other things that we know is that the price has a minimum. Right? The minimum price will be that shutdown price. If the price is below that, they won't operate at all. The price has to be bare minimum, that shutdown price or higher. Okay, and then as long as the price is above that, or equal to or above that point, then they will produce. And then what the quantity is, the quantity will be the quantity where the price equals the firm's marginal cost. Good. Okay. All right, so here we have a more realistic example then. So it's not a linear function. Most marginal cost curves, as you guys learned in Chapter 11, will have a bit of a dip here. Now the shutdown price is $20, which we can see, here's the average variable cost, and we can see that the minimum is the $20. Okay, so the price has to be 20 or higher, and then if it is, then the quantity will be where the MC equals the price. So the first example is $18. How much will they produce if the price is $18? Trick question. It's below the shutdown price, right? So they will produce 0. They will not produce anything. Okay, and then the next one. All right, so first $18, so then the price will produce nothing because it's below the shutdown price. Next one is 25. Okay, now 25, so we want to find the point where it equals MC, and now we don't have an exact equilibrium, but we can see that at $25, it will have an equilibrium though at two places here, so this is 25 here, right? So it'll have an equilibrium here and over here. Now, the firm would never produce this point because the cost is even lower on the next units, and they're going to make even more money on the next unit. So they would produce all the way up to the second equilibrium. So $25 then is there at 4, right, in between there. So at 4. Next one at 40, that would go as 6. And then at $60, the quantity would be 8. Good. Okay. So the supply curve then is going to be 2 parts. It's going to be 0 up until the shutdown price, and then above the shutdown price, then the supply curve just follows the marginal cost curve. Okay, so to draw the firm's supply curve, we need 2 prices that we should label them here. There we go. So let's label the shutdown price and the break-even price. Okay, so this one is the shutdown price. And we'll put the break-even price as well. Okay, and so then the supply curve, first of all, is going to be 0 when the price is below the shutdown price. And then when the price is equal to or above the shutdown price, then the firm will begin by supplying this quantity right here, right, where the price equals the marginal cost. And then as the price goes up from there, they will produce more and more and more. So the supply curve will follow the marginal cost curve. All right, so the pink part then is the supply curve. So it's 2 parts. All right, okay, so quantity will be 0 when the price is under the shutdown price, and then as long as the price is above that point, the quantity will just be where the price equals the marginal cost. Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay, I'll show you. I'll just let everyone write that down and then I'll show you. So the question was about the profit, where to show that. So I'll make some notes on here. So you don't have to write this down. Nice uncomfortable pause there. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to add it. I'm going to add some examples to here. You don't have to add them if you don't want to. Anyway, so the profit. So if the price is in this range, obviously, and then there's no profit at all, so there's nothing to show. If the price is within this range, between the shutdown price and the break-even price, then the firm will lose money. So I'll put, for example, P1. Now at P1, the quantity, so you go over to the marginal cost curve, so they would produce this quantity here, so I'll put Q1. But at that point, their average cost is up here. I'll label that ATC1. And so in that example, they would lose money, and the loss of money would be the difference between the average cost and the price. So this would be their loss of money. If the price is above the break-even price, so let's say up here, now they're going to make money. So at P2, so you go over to the marginal cost curve, that's the quantity they will produce. So go down here, we label Q2, and their average cost is here. Oh, it'll be kind of hard to label. Anyway, the profit would then be, so let's say it's the same as AT1. Total cost 1. So then the profit would be this green area. And then the other option is if the price equals the break-even price. If the price equals the break-even price here, then they would produce the quantity here at that point, but then there would be no profit and no loss, so nothing to color in. Okay. Any other questions?
So profit refers to positive.
Yeah. So a profit, would be positive. Now for the loss, you can either label it as a loss, or you could put profit equals negative something, and that would be just fine as well. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing to talk about is the long run. Okay. All right. So long run, short run. Right, in the short run you have a fixed input of some kind, like building, equipment, things like that. But in the long run, you have enough time to change everything. So this will be really important for a market, because what it means is that in the long run, firms can enter or exit the market. Right? To enter the market means to start a business, so you have to acquire the fixed input. Or to exit the market, you close down your business, and so you get rid of your fixed input. Right? So that's a long run concept for firms to be able to enter or exit a market. In the short run, you're just stuck. You're either in the market or you're not in the market, because you have that fixed input. But in the long run, you can go back and forth. Okay, and this will have major implications for the businesses that are in the market. Now, there's two circumstances. Either the price is high and firms are earning a profit, or prices are low and firms are losing money. In the long run, if the existing firms are earning profits, so the price is high, the existing firms are earning profits, other people who are thinking about starting a business are going to say, oh, that's a good to produce, because if I produce that good, I'm going to make more profit. And so other firms will enter the market. So if the market is currently profitable and then other firms enter the market, so then the market supply will increase, what will happen to the market price? Decrease. And then what will happen to profits? Yes. So this is why it sucks to be a farmer, because you might enter a market and start producing a certain kind of good if it's profitable, but then over time other farmers start making exactly the same thing and then the price goes down and down and down until you're just no better off than doing something else. But then the opposite can also happen. If there's a slump in the market and prices are down, like let's say people just aren't buying the good as much anymore, and the price is low, and then the firms are losing money, some of them will stick it out, but others will give up and go do something else. And so over time then some of them will leave the market, which means the market supply will decrease over time. And if the market supply decreases, then the price will increase. Yeah, and so then the ones who stick it out will eventually start breaking even again when the price goes up. Yeah. So in the long run, what will happen is that the firms will break even. In the short run, there might be profits. In the short run, there might be losses. But that will then change the number of suppliers in the market, and it will change the market price. And that price will always go back to the point where firms are breaking even. So in the long run, it's not a great market to be in, which I'm sure you guys know, because I'm sure none of you want to be a farmer for that reason. Okay, so in the long run. All right, so first example here. If the market price is less than that break-even price, that means that the firms are losing money. Some of them will want to give up and go do something else. So they will sell off their fixed inputs and go out of business. And going out of business, we could also say that they're exiting the market. It doesn't mean that they're completely closing shop. It could just mean that they switch to producing a different good. So they close down production of the one good and they can start producing a different good. So for example, my parents had an apple farm, and when I was little they had mostly trees for red delicious apples. You know, the really dark red ones? Yeah. But the price was really low. So at some point, they decided to get out of that market. Now, that didn't mean they sold their farm. What it meant is that they cut down those trees, and then they planted new trees. Okay. All right. So the other situation is if the current firms are earning a profit. So that's when the price is high. That's going to attract other firms. So my parents planted gala trees, which at the time had a high price. So they were attracted to that market because with the high price for gala apples, they were going to earn a profit. So they planted trees. So they acquired the fixed inputs, which was the trees, and then they started their gala apple business. Okay, so the new firms will acquire the fixed inputs, whatever that is, and start producing that good. So in the short run, again, you're stuck. You're either in the market producing the good or you're not. In the short run, you're stuck. So in the short run, the number of firms would be fixed, but in the long run, the number of firms can fluctuate. Okay, so in the short run, the number of producers is fixed. But in the long run, then the number of firms can fluctuate because the firms can enter or exit the market. Good. Okay. So they will enter the market, obviously, if it's profitable. And so then if other firms are entering a profitable market, it will increase the market supply. So the supply will shift right. And then the opposite, if the price is low and firms are losing money, some of them will exit the market. They'll cut down their trees or whatever it is. And then the number of firms decreases, so the supply in the market will shift left. And just like in Chapter 3, then, looks the same as you learned in Chapter 3. You show the supply curve shifting to the right or shifting to the left. All right, so we'll go through several examples now. First one, we'll start with a profitable market. So we'll start with a market price that is more than the break-even price. There we go. All right. So we have our two diagrams, just like we discussed on the first few pages of the chapter last class. We have two diagrams because what we want to show is both the market supply and the individual supply, which is the marginal cost for the individual firm. Now, this is where the price is determined. So just like in Chapter 3, the equilibrium between supply and demand in the market will determine the price. So here's our price right here. And what we want to do now is draw a line all the way across both diagrams. And then we can label that P1. So the next thing, the quantity in the market is Q1. And then for the individual firm, the quantity that they're making, we've got lowercase q for the individual quantity, is where this price equals their marginal cost. So that's right here. So label that little q1. Now, the firm is earning a profit for sure because at that quantity, the average cost is right here, well below the price that they're earning. So now let's draw a line here. And then that rectangle that's formed will be their profit. Good. Okay, so in this kind of a market, firms can earn a profit. It's just that it won't last very long. It'll only last until other firms enter the market. Now, how long that is just depends on what the good is. So for apples, for example, the profits can last for several years because it takes a long time for an apple tree to grow. Whereas if you're producing, say, watermelons, it only takes a few months to grow watermelons, so the profits wouldn't last as long in the watermelon market. Okay, so what's going to happen? All right, so the profit will attract new firms. So new firms will enter the market. And that means that the market supply will shift right. And then when this supply curve shifts to the right, that's going to push the price down. And then what will happen for the individual firm, so here's the price. So as the price goes down, then that quantity that they're making, which is where the price equals the MC, the quantity will keep decreasing. Then the profit will decrease, right? So the profit or the difference between the price and the ATC will decrease. Okay, so profits will decrease. And then the firms will produce less. Okay, so again, so what's happening then in the picture is that this market supply is going to increase. As this increases, the price will go down. And then over here, as the price goes down, then we move along down the MC curve, and each firm is going to produce a smaller quantity, and then as well the size of the profit will get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that will continue. It's hard to point. So the profit is the difference between the price and the average cost. And so as we go this way, that difference gets smaller and smaller and smaller until the price gets to that break-even point in which there is no more profit. But that will be where the market heads in the long run, because as long as the price is more than the average cost and the existing firms are earning profit, new firms will want to start making the good. And so that will push the price down. And so only when the price gets down to that break-even point, that's the point where new firms will no longer want to enter the market. And so then that will be the long-run equilibrium for the market, which is on the next page. Okay. All right, so what we want to show here is where the market will end up in the long run. All right, so price goes down, 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 down until we get to here, the break-even price. So what we want to do is now draw a horizontal line across both diagrams. That will be the price where we end up, or where the market ends up at. Okay, so we'll label that P2. And now we know where to draw the new market supply curve. So what has happened is in the market, new firms have entered the market, pushing the supply this way until the price gets to that point. So that's where we want to draw the new supply curve. There. All right, so in the market, we now have a larger quantity because there's more firms, but each individual firm is actually producing less because we've gone from this price here, where the producers were producing the higher quantity, down to this point here, and now each individual producer is producing a smaller quantity. And then there's no profit or loss to color in because they're breaking even. Good. Okay, any questions? All right, so P2 is the break-even price. Yeah.
I noticed that you're not drawing like the graphs so that they touch the axis. Is it because this
Oh.
graph is zero?
It's not really important, actually. Just the way it worked out.
Because like, didn't you say before that supply is actually zero until?
Oh, well, that was an individual one. Yeah, and for the market, it would be like that too, but you don't have to worry about it when you're drawing it. Yeah. Okay, so each firm decreases production, but there are more firms, so the market quantity supplied has increased. And then at this price, the break-even price, this will be a long-run equilibrium because when the price is at that point, new firms will not have any motivation at all to enter the market. They're going to see that existing firms are just breaking even. So the people who want to start their own business will look for something else to produce. Okay, so the long-run equilibrium is at that P2, Q2 where the profits will be zero. Now remember, I think I talked about this last class, when we say breaking even, which is a profit of zero, we mean economic profit is zero. So the accounting profit is positive. So like my parents made money, it's just they didn't make a lot of money, right? So the economic profit was zero for them in the long run because the amount of money that they were making was not much more than whatever other kind of job they could have had instead. Okay, so in the long run, the equilibrium is the price and quantity that's reached in the market where the firms are breaking even. And it's a long-run equilibrium, meaning that at that point, there's going to be no more changes in the number of firms. Like other firms aren't going to want to enter the market, and also there's no reason to leave the market.